Hello, how are you? It's been a while. I wasn't able to upload for a while because, really honestly, I was busy with the topic of today's video, which was that I was working on an academic research article, and it honestly took a really long time. And then I had some other work to do, and then honestly, I just wanted to give myself a break because I kind of already pushed myself like to my limits with the amount of work that I was doing. But I'll kind of go over it and explain in this video today. Yeah, continuing from last time, I was just working on my paper about Serial Experiments Lain. So if I remember correctly, as I left off in my last little episode, I had like a pretty solid draft written. I really had I think 16 pages at that time. And then after that video, I uploaded that video. I took another break of maybe like a week or a couple days, maybe focused on some other writing. And then I was like, oh my God, I really have to get back into this. I have to finish this. Yeah, so then I did give myself, a very short break, a couple days or a week. And it was really hard to just like get back into it again. I did start to procrastinate again. Yeah, one thing that helped me like get focused again or like get the motivation to jump back into it was that when I was working on that draft, I think I mentioned I kind of split it up. I made like kind of little sections. I was like, okay, this is the introduction. Okay, here's part one. I had a little title. I'm like, here I'm going to talk about like this history, talk about this part of it. My paper was about posthumanism. So I started by kind of reflecting on like the California ideology or like more like transhumanist visions of like technological futures or how we relate to technology. And then I had a second section where I'm like, okay, now I'll get into the posthumanism. That was really like the focus of my paper. So I kind of split it up that way. And I did that just to help myself make sense of it, honestly. But it was also very helpful for like the writing process. So I would recommend to you, if you're writing something really long, even if the sections are kind of arbitrary, you can always change the title, you can always change them up, but kind of just splitting it up, being like, okay, this is section 1, this is section 2, section 3, it will be very helpful for you. Because what I told myself, and I mean now it's like, okay, why did you even make it a section? I had one, it was like one of those sections with the subheading was like 3 pages. So I was like, okay, it's 3 pages. Like I can handle that. I can edit 3 pages. I think I can do this. Yeah, and then I was like, those 3 pages probably did take me like 3 days or more. I feel like it still took me like too long, but at least that made it more manageable. Like, okay, yeah, I can work on this. I can open up my document and it's just a couple pages. I can edit that. It was like way less daunting than thinking of it as like a full 16-page project. So, I would definitely recommend using that as a strategy, and that's something I'll do in the future. Oh, and also to help myself manage that, I did kind of make like a checklist, and that helped me motivate myself. So I had all my like subtitled sections, and then I also made a note of like the introduction, the conclusion, and then also just like checking that I put everything in Chicago format properly. When I originally wrote the paper, it was an MLA, but the journal that I was submitting it to required Chicago format. So I knew that I was going to have to redo all my citations and everything like that, make sure it's formatted properly. So that was just another task that I saved for the very end. I was like, okay, I'll worry about this at the end. Let me just at least make sure I'm keeping track of everything. So that is how I guided myself. And I'm glad I did that, because if I didn't break it up into little pieces, I would have not wanted to work on it at all. Yeah, and then another thing, like honestly, I did work on it. I worked very hard. I spent a lot of time on it, but also I wanted to quit so much. This really was like an exercise in willpower. Even though I've written things before, I've written longer things. It's just like having a hard deadline, and I have published something before, but just having the deadline was really stressful. I wanted to quit so many times because I was kind of like, well, I want to make it better. Like, okay, I can just not send it in. This is something where I'm sending it in out of my own volition. It's not like something I agreed or signed up to do. So I was like, I mean, I can just quit at any time. So I really was tempted. I was really had to like fight the demons in my head to be like, no, even if this is terrible trash, let's at least finish it. and send it in, and worst case scenario, it will get rejected. I mean, even if I spent years making it even more perfect, it could still get rejected, because that's how academic publishing is. So I was like, okay, I really just have to get this done. But I don't even know like how else to stress that it took every ounce of my willpower, because I really had to like ghost my friends, get rid of all of their commitments, like not do anything else to get it done in the amount of time that I had. It's like I felt like I really had to like fight for my time. So like honestly, that's just the truth about writing anything, is that or creating anything, you really have to like people talk about protecting their peace, but it's more like if you actually want to create something like this, you have to fight for the time to do it, because our world is not set up for that. If it's not immediately making you money, there's no incentive to do it besides your own like desire and will to do it. And other people like, you know, might not be as concerned about it as you. So even if it sounds nice, like you really have to fight for it. That's what it felt like. Maybe I'm being like over dramatic, but this is like not easy to do, to get done. Like not even just like the writing itself, but just the time that you have to put into it, like creating the time and then actually like doing it, like sitting down like it's a job, like okay, I'm gonna go for I have 6 hours today, I'm gonna go do this. And that basically is what I ended up doing. So maybe now I'll show some more of the clips. So once I kind of wrote the first section, again, I had a draft and I was kind of expanding on it. So it started to grow page by page, basically. Like as I went through, like, okay, let's go to this first section and rewrite it. I was making all the language nicer. I was adding more context, kind of beefing it up. And also I saved the introduction and conclusion for the very end, because I knew I wanted it to reflect the content of the body of the paper. So, things like that, don't worry, you can always save that for the very end. But as I went and as I started revising my language and stuff in each section, it slowly grew. So by the end of it, I believe I had 23 pages written. First I focused on, okay, what's on the page. So I worked on revising my language, and then I wanted to add some more citations. As I was reading along, I was like, okay, this is not really that well supported. What if we just cite like a couple more scholars? Like, let's just throw a couple more citations in. Or sometimes I just want to reference something, but I don't want to be just making stuff up. It's like a citation needed. So I have to like fact check myself for anything I want to say. So I did go to the library and explored a little bit, and it's fun. Like, of course I had a certain like goal in mind. I was like, okay, I want to cite more. Like I was looking for something about Vannevar Bush. That is actually how you pronounce his name, I believe, Vannevar. I wanted to just mention about like his role in the Manhattan Project, because he is mentioned in Serial Experiments Lain. If you watch my last vlog episode, I wrote a lot about episode 9 called Protocol. That's the name of the Lain episode, where they have these like references to concepts and experiments that relate to consciousness and the internet. And one of them is Vannevar Bush has this thing called Memex. And I just wanted to kind of like show, these sorts of ideas are developed like under wartime. There's like a material connection, I mean, if you know about like DARPANet, it's a very clear, direct connection between like the US military and the internet, the purposes that the internet serves and things like this. So without getting too much into that here, I just wanted to find like a good citation for that. So I did go look for a book about him to find it, but honestly I feel like the one I found did not even really work well, but I eventually did find my source. And then before I get too much into that though, then I also knew I want to cite more anime studies scholars, to just give more like cultural context about studies of Japan and animation, the animation industry. So that's why I have my little pile of anime books. When I was searching for these books, I found this sort of like media studies corner of the library, and I found this like secret note from someone from like 2007 or something. And I found a little robot when I was exploring. That was when I was looking for books about UFOs. Really, I combed through, I grabbed a stack of like 10 books that were relevant to my research. I sat down, I like judge them by the titles of each chapter. I jumped to the chapter, I pulled a quote that sounded good, and of course I put more thought into it. I was speed reading it. I was critically thinking about the sort of quotes and books and texts I was selecting, of course. But I had a good amount of stuff, like I added it in, so then I'm like, okay, this feels a lot more well supported and well researched now, so I was happy with it. So then I was like, okay, the next day I was like, okay, that's been accomplished. Now the next goal is really to just, again, focus on the language and make sure that the stuff I am quoting, the stuff I am citing and referencing, that I'm like paraphrasing properly and getting the ideas across, and that my argument is strong and my argument is well connected. So really all just kind of coming down to the language of it. I had my ideas and I had my research, is just really expressing it well. So then I spent another whole day probably fixing the second half, the second section, which was a lot longer. And I have to say, because I was swiftly approaching the submission deadline, I really had to put so much faith in my past self, because while I took a lot of time to polish up the first kind of half of the paper, the second half, I just didn't have that much time, even if I wanted to like fix it up even more. I couldn't make that many large structural changes. It's kind of like, okay, I said what I said, I've got to stand by this argument now. I mean, I did stand by it. If I didn't believe in it, I thought it was like absolute trash, I would have not sent it in. I think it's like decent enough, but I wish I could have like explained things, like had a couple more sentences that just explain like, okay, what do I actually mean when I say this, like that sort of thing. But yeah, basically that was the next step, is fixing that last part, the second half. And I really was just like, okay, past me, don't let me down as I read through this. Please don't make any huge mistakes. Like, this has to be good. And thankfully it was decent enough. And then the last day was kind of writing the introduction and conclusion, and then the citations. But honestly, the introduction and the conclusion took a lot longer than I thought. I kept thinking like, oh, I just have to do this. Like, come on, those are easy. You're just summarizing what you said. Oh, and I also had to write an abstract. And I was telling my friend, he was also working on something that he was writing at the same time. And yeah, it's like you feel kind of like, oh, I should know how to do this. This is easy. But honestly, it's not. Like, that is a skill in and of itself, because you really need the introduction and conclusion to like land the argument. It's like, this is the point. Like, this is the actual takeaway, and you have to really be able to articulate that clearly and strongly. And the abstract too, it's like, okay, I wrote the paper, I know what my point is, but you know, it's very difficult actually to have like 20 pages of very complex ideas and have to condense it into 200 words. So if you are like a writer or an academic, I would say pat yourself on the back and like recognize that that is actually like a unique skill. It's its own skill. It's not something to be underestimated, actually. So maybe also, you know, as a writer, give yourself time in the future to actually work on those sections properly. For me, it's just came down to balancing like work-life balance. I mean, you know, this is almost more of like a personal project too. So again, I had to make that time for myself, and this is just what I was able to do. So I had like basically like maybe 2 weeks where I like was locked in. I was really locked in. And honestly, I am the type of person that prefers deep work. I mean, maybe that's the sort of thing I can make a video about in the future, but and it's not even procrastinating. It's just that like, okay, I'm setting aside this day to work on this project. So that's all that we're doing that day. You know, we're going to spend 8 hours on that. And for me, I think that helps, because if you're trying to do a lot of different things, it's a really easy way to just focus on one task and just make sure it gets done. I was just like, I can't go home until this is done. So I would say normally, yeah, take care of yourself. But I was starving. I went like 6 hours with only drinking like a latte, and I brought a granola bar, but I didn't realize it was actually so tiny. It was like no food at all. So I was like starving, and it never felt so good to like just go eat a bunch of fried chicken and french fries after that. I definitely made sure to reward myself, and I even got a vanilla milkshake. That food was really good. So yeah, it's all about, you know, you have to know when to work hard and when to reward yourself. Yeah, and then I don't know where I'll put this in a video. I might just kind of like cut this in, but yeah, one of the interesting things I found while researching that I can share is like with Vannevar Bush. I mean, this is the thing that is so interesting about the episode of Lain. Like they list like hypertext, just all these different ideas of like the World Wide Web, or like how can we collect information, connect people. It's kind of the whole theme and what I wrote about. But with Vannevar Bush, he had this idea of something called the Memex. He published something in the Atlantic in July 1945, and he said basically, consider a future device in which an individual stores all his books, records, and communications, and which is mechanized so that it may be consulted with exceeding speed and flexibility. It is an enlarged, intimate supplement to his memory. So, I mean, for me, that just kind of sounds again like the dream of AI, that people have this idea like, okay, in my business or my workplace or my personal work or my government, my world system, whatever it is, that you can have all this information, interconnected, see it linked. There's so many products today that is their selling point. Without listing every like tech business. It's fascinating that, these ideas are things that people have been dreaming of accomplishing since the 40s, during World War II. So you consider like the context in which these ideas were developed. And saying that, I did find this really interesting book that I do probably want to pick up again, and maybe I'll even incorporate some content from this onto my channel. But like, there's this book called Technomanifestos. I'll put the name of the author on the screen after because I can't find it right now and I don't remember his name. But it was kind of just, again, similar to that episode of Lain, just a bunch of lists of like these different proclamations or ideas of what like tech people wanted to implement or create related to things like the internet and information. And I believe this is like an insight of that author. I couldn't find anything else mentioning this like from a quick Google search, but he actually compared Vannevar Bush's essay to like Ralph Waldo Emerson's essay called The American Scholar, which is basically just him presenting that, we need to free information from the universities, like this whole idea of freedom of information. And, it actually is like also a very American idea that, it's democratic, we have access to it, an institution is not holding it hostage, we're able to share it amongst ourselves. So yeah, I don't know, I think that is so interesting. I still need to actually fully read that Ralph Waldo Emerson essay before I actually like comment on it, but he's outlining his idea of what the perfect American scholar looks like. And I think it's really interesting now with all these things that are happening, unfortunately, to the American university. And there's all these sort of like para-academic institutions arising, or para-academic groups, or Substacks and courses and people selling stuff online that are meant to mimic the university but be more decentralized or, free of certain ideologies one way or another, no matter, what they're claiming to be or support. There's a wide spectrum. So I don't know, I think that is definitely worth looking into, and I would love to make another video talking about para-academia as a concept. But that was one little interesting like little point that I found, kind of connecting this technological culture to, larger American context, because I do study American literature also. That was another kind of thread for me to pick up on in the future. And another thing that I didn't write about this in my paper. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm the only person that understands Lain. Not actually. There's definitely people that get it right, but a lot of people misinterpret it. And I think that actually might even be better at this point. Now that I've read like Chiaki J. Konaka's blog, I will also post that below. You have to translate it. You can try running it through Google Translate, but something that confused me and something that I wrote about in my paper is just that, it feels like a lot of people, they see Lain and they're like, whoa, like technology and the internet, and we're all like, our consciousness is connected, and there's like this global like human instrumentality project, like in Evangelion, we can all be connected. And a lot of people are like, wow, that's like so cool. I mean, yeah, it is really cool and interesting. But I feel like the idea that we should like delete our bodies and upload our mind into the wired and live in the wired, and that's the ideal form of being, and we don't need to be discrete entities anymore, we can be a hive mind. Like, that's what the villain antagonist character wants to accomplish. So sometimes I'm just like, did you guys watch the last episode? Like, she kind of, you know, tells him off and says, no, I don't want that. I mean, it's fine if you agree with him. I guess that is, you know, your perspective of things. But sometimes I just wonder if like a lot of people are misreading the series. And then there's definitely a lot of people that get over that hurdle. But then something that actually really shocked me is reading Konaka's blog. I mean, I wouldn't have known this watching this show like, you know, 10, 20 years ago. You know, you wouldn't have known this at the time. But, you know, he's recently had these sort of scandals or things. I don't really want to get into it because I haven't researched it enough, but he's kind of like, I don't know, is YouTube gonna censor this? Like, he's kind of strange about certain pandemics and certain measures that you take to prevent infection. He's a little strange about it, and it was like some weird speech or monologue a character had in like the Digimon stage play. If you just Google like Konaka COVID, you will probably see whatever I'm referring to. But no, like that actually is kind of what he had in mind with Lain. Like, I kind of wrote this like feminist perspective of Lain. But I think what he actually meant with the series, like in his blog, he literally talks about like Lain stopping the Great Reset. He is literally like the ultimate conspiracy theorist, and she's kind of like the like anti-New World Order like protagonist. And I was like, I mean, obviously other people are involved in making the show, like Ryutaro Nakamura, who is the director. There's obviously other hands there. So, you know, we're in the era of the death of the author, you know, so to speak. It's not like he has the final word, but it's actually really hilarious to me that if you know, you can read the blog post if you're interested, but I'm like, oh, he actually has like a really offbeat interpretation of who Lain is and like what kind of hero she is, what she's actually doing. So I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole in this video because my camera is actually like getting kind of low right now as far as the battery goes. But yeah, and honestly, even though I don't agree with him on a lot of things, it does kind of make me like the show even more, because I also think the show again really taps into the sort of like Denpa, like conspiracy otaku like subculture thing. So it does kind of add an edge to it. It is like, okay, yeah, like it kind of expresses this sort of like specific type of like, mental illness or anxiety of like the internet era, which is also like a research interest of mine. So I definitely got a really great deeper appreciation for the show from doing this project, regardless of anything else. So those are some of my random thoughts, and I know it's like kind of confused because I didn't really tell you what really that much of my thesis of my paper, what I wrote about in my paper itself. But you'll have to wait and see if it gets published. If it gets published, I can make a big fancy video essay about it. But for now, you just have to listen to this. I'm sorry. But yeah, I do have another research project coming up that I actually will have a deadline for, that I actually am beholden to. So with that one, I think I'm just going to continue this as like a research with me series. If you are interested in any of the topics I mentioned, let's just say this next research project will be very well aligned with conspiracy, paranoia, the sciences, post-human feminism, and things that I don't know if I can talk about without getting censored on YouTube, or even worse. So even worse things could happen to me. I could be silenced. yeah, so that one it is also kind of a touchy topic. I'm gonna have to be really careful how I discuss it, because it is like serious. It is also like not something to be made light of, and I don't want to do that. I'm like, you know, it's fun and safe when you're talking about these things in anime. So that is one, you know, nice thing about researching anime, and not real things, which the next project will be. But anyways, thank you for watching this. I have a ton of content planned, not filmed yet, but I have a lot of plans. I have a lot of footage already recorded of like B-roll and stuff. I have a lot that I'm working on. You know, if you're at all interested in any of this nonsense that I'm rambling about, then subscribe for more nonsense. And you can also subscribe to my Substack. There will be a lot coming on my Substack. There's already more stuff for you to read there if you're at all interested. So thank you for watching and have a nice day.